Hello and welcome everyone. Thanks for watching this video. My name's Eric Fisk and this is my channel, Fisk Financial, where we talk about everything and anything about personal finance and investing. 2020 is drawing to a close, and with any new year, it's always a great time to reevaluate and reassess your situation, look at your strategies, and make a plan for moving forward. So without further ado, let's get into the topic for today's video, which is investing in the markets versus paying off your home mortgage early. To start to evaluate these two options, we're going to look at a possible situation of a two-person household with a combined total income of $90,000 a year. This fictitious couple that we're going to talk about is going to put $13,500 into their 401k every year. That's about 15% of their yearly earnings. The reason we choose this percentage amount is this is kind of the Dave Ramsey recommendation. We're going to be comparing this plan against the investing plan. Now, after the pre-tax 401k contribution, we have another pre-tax expense, which is about $4,000 for their yearly medical coverage. This brings their total taxable income down to $72,500. Now, looking at the tax situation for this couple, we're going to incorporate federal, state, local, and FICA taxes, which are your Medicare and Social Security benefits. I'm going to spare you the details of going into all of those exact numbers, but the total for our taxes is going to be $19,171. Subtracting that amount from our taxable income gives us $53,329 as the total take-home pay. So that's what this couple is seeing going into their bank account every year. Now let's start to take a look at their expenses. So the largest expense for this couple, and for most couples, is going to be their mortgage payment. We're going to say they bought a $300,000 home and they put 20% down as their down payment to avoid that PMI, which gives them a total mortgage amount of $240,000. Today's interest rates being what they are, they locked in a great 3% interest rate fixed on a 30-year loan, which makes their monthly mortgage payment $1,012. About $600 of that is going to go to interest, $412 will be going to principal. Those numbers will vary as they pay that mortgage down, but that's what we're looking at to start. Now, we're not quite done with the total monthly mortgage payment. Most of the time, your mortgage is also going to have an escrow account tied to it. The escrow account is to collect fees for insurance premiums as well as yearly property taxes. Not every mortgage is going to require an escrow account, but in general, it tends to be a simpler way to handle these expenses, as property taxes are generally paid out every 6 months. So rather than having to save and account for those fees on a 6-month basis, rolling them into an escrow account along with the insurance just makes it easier for you to make one payment to a single institution that covers your mortgage, property taxes, and insurance premiums. So we're going to say the property taxes on this home is about 1.5% of the value. Now, from a national perspective, this is a little high. Nationally, 1.1% is the average, but we're going to say that this couple lives in a little bit more of an expensive area. So that's going to be $4,500 a year additional that they're going to have to pay in property taxes. On top of that, we have their home insurance, which is going to be $1,000 a year. So all of these expenses together brings our total monthly mortgage payment to $1,470. Now let's talk about some more fun expenses, utilities. So this couple, like most, are going to pay gas and electric. They're going to have their water bill, their sewer fees, they're going to have internet, they're also going to have a phone plan, and Netflix, because who can live without Netflix? Total, this is going to bring their monthly utility bill to $400. Additionally, this couple's got to eat, so $300 a month is going to go to their groceries. They could maybe do a little bit better on that, but they splurge on the occasional Whole Foods trip, so $300 for groceries. A couple more expenses. Monthly car insurance is going to be about $66 on their 2 cars. They're also going to have a $100 restaurant fund. They like to go out and eat occasionally, so $100 a month for that. And they're going to be putting $200 into their savings every single month to save for that rainy day, home repair, whatever it may be. Now, this couple's doing pretty good. They're focused on the future and they're keeping their living expenses fairly low. Their total monthly expenses are going to be $2,536, which makes their yearly expenses $30,432. Again, we're going to subtract this $30,432 from their total take-home pay, which was $53,329, and that gives us what they have left over to either invest or plow into their mortgage payment. That total amount that they have left is $22,897. So here's where the fun begins. For the investment piece, we're going to use an S&P 500 index as their main investment vehicle. The S&P 500 is made up of the top 500 companies in the US stock exchange. The average return rate we're going to use for that is 10%. That has been the average return for the S&P 500 for about the past 90 years. This is not an inflation-adjusted percentage, and we'll talk about why we do that a little bit later. This past year, the returns for the S&P 500 was about 15 to 16%. Looking at the past 10 years, it's been about 11.5%. So 10% is a totally fair assumption for this type of an investment. Obviously, the way that the stock market works, it's not going to be a 10% return every year. Some year you may have 25% returns. The next year you might have 15% losses. But for the sake of simple calculations, we're going to use that 10% return across all of our years investing. So I'm going to put some numbers up and we can look at the returns from this investment. In our first year investing that $22,987, we're going to see 10% returns, which makes our total nest egg $25,286. Extrapolating this out for the full 30-year term that we're looking at and continually adding in that approximately $23,000 every year, compounding that interest 10% annually, we end up with a final lump sum of $4,144,000 after 30 years. That's a lot of money. And what's even more impressive is that we only paid in $689,000 over the course of that 30-year period. Those were the contributions that this couple made to that investment account, and due to the interest, they ended up with over $4 million in their nest egg. I think this figure really demonstrates the importance of investing early and often to take advantage of that compound interest on your account. So that's great, but let's go back and look at our other scenario, which is instead of investing in the market, this couple decides to put that extra principal against the payment of their mortgage. So taking that extra $23,000 a year and putting it as an extra principal payment against our mortgage is going to pay off our mortgage in about 8 years. Now there's plenty of online calculators that you can look up that'll easily do this math for you. So I won't break out all the numbers, but know that in about 8 years at that amount, we're going to pay off this $240,000 mortgage. At which point in year 9, this couple can now start taking what would have been their monthly mortgage payment and adding that to their investments. However, since we were putting all of that excess money into the mortgage instead of the markets, we're starting at a basis of $0 to begin our investing in year 9. One really important thing to keep in mind here, going back to our expenses at the beginning of the video, we talked about $1,470 being the total monthly mortgage payment. Not all of that $1,470 can now be invested in the markets. Remember, we've still got property taxes and insurance payments. Those do not go away. As long as you own the property, you have to pay those. So it's just that $1,012 that was our mortgage payment that is now going to be added to our total to invest. This brings our total yearly investment amount to $35,041. After our first year of investing that, we're going to see a return of $38,545, and extrapolating that out the 30 years that we're looking at gives us a total nest egg of $2,752,000. Comparing that to our invest first strategy, that's a difference of about $1.4 million. That's a big number. That's about 51% less in your account if you pay off your mortgage first versus if you had invested that money from the start. Not to really pile on in this example, but we've also invested more in our contributions to the tune of about $770,000 versus our, $689,000 in the invest first option. So that's an additional $80,000 that we paid in, and we ended up with $1.4 million less. You can really start to see here from a mathematical standpoint, paying off your mortgage early, especially at a 3% interest rate or something in that realm, is really not the smart play. Now, all of this is to say there isn't really a right or wrong answer here. The answer is going to depend on what your personal investment goals are. Mathematically, yes, it makes more sense to invest before paying off your home. Psychologically, maybe you'd rather not have a mortgage payment. This is kind of the point that the Dave Ramsey approach is getting to. I'm not a Dave Ramsey hater. I'm really not. He's a smart guy. He's got a lot of great investment advice. He knows his numbers too. He's aware that mathematically paying off your home first is not the right approach. But Dave definitely takes that more psychological approach to this problem. Hopefully now you understand the numbers behind it and you recognize that investing before paying off your home is actually the more mathematically sound approach, but you still hate having that mortgage payment. Let's go back to our numbers and look at an alternate approach here. Looking back at our Invest First strategy, after year 8, we've got $288,000 in our nest egg. Over the course of those 8 years, as we've been paying those minimum payments on our mortgage, we've paid down about $40,000 in principal. So really your loan amount is approximately $200,000. If you really still want to get rid of that mortgage, take that lump sum we have invested to the tune of $288,000 and pay off that mortgage. Now, if we were taking out that full amount, we would have to pay a 15% capital gains tax on the amount of interest that we earned. So subtract about $15,000 from that total. Still gives us $273,000 minus a $200,000 mortgage, and your net was $73,000 left over. Now going into year 9, when you would typically have started investing if you had paid off your mortgage first over the course of those 8 years, instead of starting from zero, you're starting with $73,000. This means if you're going this approach and now starting to invest after paying off that mortgage, you're starting with that $73,000 and then adding in the $35,000 that we're doing with the mortgage paid first option gives us a year 1 return of $108,000. Taking this approach and extrapolating that out again towards the end of our 30-year term gives us a nest egg of $3.3 million. This is a significant increase from our original option, so we've got about $600,000 more than if we had just been paying off the mortgage all along. So I mentioned before, we're not accounting for inflation-adjusted returns here. Realistically, the stock market would be closer to a 7-8% annualized return with inflation accounted for. But the reason we didn't do that in this example is because we're just talking about the hard numbers, not necessarily their buying power in the future. So if you wanted to look at that from the other approach as well, a $1,012 mortgage payment in $2,050 is going to be more like paying $482 in today's dollars. So the argument that you are not making as great of returns on the investment because of inflation kind of goes away because you're realistically not paying as much for your mortgage either. Hopefully that made sense and didn't muck up things too much for you, but I just wanted to make that clear for any doubters out there. So just in summation here, this is just an example and everyone's situation is going to be a little bit different. Your household income may be different than the example, your interest may be different, and this is all going to be factors in changing that equation. But realistically, looking at today's low interest rates, if you've been able to lock in a mortgage at 3% or somewhere around there, or maybe you're able to refinance to that, really the clear winner here is to be investing in the markets rather than trying to pay off that mortgage at such a low interest rate. This is my opinion, guys, and again, it's going to come down to a lot more of your personal preference, so please, there is no right or wrong answer. Investing or paying down your mortgage, either of those options is better than going and blowing that money on something that doesn't retain its value or something that's gone in a blink of an eye. So I'm not shaming you either way, but look at the numbers again. There's a significant upside to be investing in the markets at this time. That's all I've got for you guys today. Hopefully you learned something here and this was helpful in helping you develop your strategy moving forward. If you liked the video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. And if you enjoyed the content, please go ahead and subscribe because I'm going to be coming out with many more videos similar to this. Thank you guys again for watching. Until next time.